Whether you're getting destroyed on the mats or whether you are a man that always likes to make progress, in this video I'm going to rate the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu performance enhancement methods all the way to the worst. Why you should listen to me. I spent 12 years in the parachute regiment, and most of them years I was a physical training instructor. The things that I used to deliver had to have the most positive impact because lives sometimes may be at risk as a result of the things that I'm showing people. I also now train grapplers, and I've spent a lot of time at Kingsway with world champions. So I've got a very unique perspective on all these matters, right? So pay close attention, because what I'm trying to say is do the things that have the most positive impact and kind of push the rest of the things away. That's all I'm trying to say, right? So first thing we're going to talk about is massage guns. Are they effective? Are they going to benefit your performance? Massage guns will benefit your performance if you are doing 10, 15, 20 hours of volume. Massage guns are not a performance enhancement method. They are a performance maintenance method, right? So you've got to think, if you're doing 3 jiu-jitsu sessions a week and you are trying to maintain that current level of output with a massage gun, then your issue is not that you need more massage. Your issue is that you need to improve your capacity to do more jiu-jitsu, not maintain just them 3 sessions per week, right? They do work for the top 1% of athletes when they're doing so much training. However, for most people, they do not work. Next one I'm going to talk about is more cardio. Jiu-jitsu is cardiovascular training. It is endurance based. The rounds are 5, 6 minutes long, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, however long your rounds are. So you've got to ask yourself, what benefit does adding more cardio have for my performance? Now, one thing that jiu-jitsu is, it's complex and sometimes uncontrollable, right? So you don't have full control over the variables. By adding some precise cardiovascular training in whatever training zones in which you want to develop, whether that be your base, your aerobic base, which will be great for recovery rates, or your high-end stuff, it is going to be very useful. And it's going to be very useful because you're not going to get influenced. Now, there's some people that will say, oh, the best form of cardio is on the mats. I actually disagree with this, because if you're sending it on the mats, but you're grappling with someone more experienced than you, you're not going to get a chance to express these cardiovascular, your heart, your lungs. You're not going to get a chance to express that because you're not in full control over the situation. Now, one way you can be in full control of the situation is by training on a specific type of CV equipment, having specific rest periods, doing specific durations in which you're, working. So I actually think this is fucking really good, really necessary, and loads of the professionals at the top level are doing cardio off the mats, whether that be rowing machine, whether that be assault bike sessions, and they're developing precisely their high-end cardio, something that you can't get on the mats. If you're grappling with a white belt, you're not going to get the chance to display zone 5 high-end cardio. And there's a perfectly legitimate reason that I'm not putting it at S tier, right? The reason I'm not putting it at S tier is because you need to be very careful about how much cardio you're doing off the mats. Hopefully that makes sense. Next one. Supplements. Supplements, again, oversold, overused. What are you trying to achieve with supplements? But I'm going to be generous because they can be useful when you have deficits in your meal plan. So more supplements doesn't move the needle. It's not going to enhance your performance much at all. Below average for supplements. The next one, ice baths. Right. For the same reason, massage guns, the reason your recovery is shit, the reason your performance is shit, is not because you didn't do enough ice baths or you didn't do enough anti-inflammatory activities. For performance enhancement, terrible, right? So the reason it doesn't really benefit your performance is the same reason as massage guns. If you're doing 3 to 5 jiu-jitsu sessions and you're using ice baths to maintain that current level of performance, you don't have a recovery problem. You have a capacity problem, and your priority should be best spent on things that improve your capacity to do more jiu-jitsu. Hopefully that makes sense. I never said to a paratrooper, use any of these. Lives were at risk based off how I train people. I never said these methods, right? And there's a reason for that. Next one. Electrolytes, electrolitos. So, jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of sweating, and sometimes water is not enough to hydrate you because of the amount of sweat. And it depends on how you are as a person. I'm a person that sweats a lot, so electrolytes help my performance massively. But another thing with electrolytes, again, overpopularized and overconsumed. There's people nowadays that are taking electrolytes on a morning. Like, the reason you take electrolytes is to replenish minerals lost through sweat. If you're not sweating, then why do you need electrolytes? Now, if you're taking electrolyte during your session because you sweat loads, it's going to be great for your performance, right? So electrolytes are going to go here. Taking notes. Does taking notes affect your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu performance? Jiu-Jitsu is a very complex martial art. There's a lot of problem solving, there's a lot of thinking. Anything that we can do to improve our ability to think, remember, and problem solve is going to add huge value to our Jiu-Jitsu performance. Professionals, top level athletes training at Kingsway are taking notes most sessions. They'll ask John Danaher a question and they're there taking notes. And they train 2 times a day and they're taking notes. Their notebooks like this. So, we know we should do more of this. We do it in areas of our life in which we care dearly about. It's very easy to overlook it on the mats. So, I'm going to put taking notes in A tier. The next one I'm going to talk about is bodybuilding. Does bodybuilding training affect your performance in a positive way? So what is bodybuilding? Bodybuilding is predominantly building muscle mass. Now, building muscle mass provides your body with a foundation of muscle, but also a foundation for performance enhancement as well. Without muscle mass, you massively limit the amount of strength that you can develop. You massively limit the amount of power you can develop, then speed, and all the rest of it. So the foundation has to be muscle mass. It all starts with building your grappling armour. Now, bodybuilding and muscle mass and the stigma that comes with bodybuilding gets an extremely bad, gets a bit of a rough time. However, when we take our emotions out of the equation and think, logically speaking, what does this provide me? Now, if you're a person who doesn't have much muscle mass, doesn't have much strength, it has to start with bodybuilding. It has to start, and you don't even need to call it bodybuilding. If that term repulses you a little bit, you have to call it, I'm building my armor. You need your armor for longevity within these martial arts. So, bodybuilding is going to go, because it's the foundation of you building your structure, it is so important, right? And I'm going to take it up. It's going to go into S tier. The next one, TB500. Peptides are at an all-time high. They are going absolutely crazy right now. And there's a lot of men that are taking them. There's a lot of grapplers that are taking them. And I'm going to actually get this other one up as well. Another popular one. People think that these peptides will help with their performance, will help them be able to train more. And I'm not convinced. I've took these 2 peptides before, and some days it made it feel better, some days it made it feel worse, right? With these things, you're injecting this into your joint twice a day, and you're taking this, I think, once or twice a week. And you've got to think, Doing something external, how much benefit is it going to provide me? Like, I took this years ago when I was really desperate with an elbow injury, and what I found is when I stopped taking these things and actually started prioritizing the things that matter, that's when everything changed, right? So these are going down into, I'm not going to put it in F tier. I am not going to do that. But they are close. And the reason is these provide minor percentile benefits. People take these because they're injured and desperate, right? So it's very easy to think of a thing as being able to solve your issue, right? It's not as easy as that, because you've got to think about the pattern that you've been doing, the pattern of thought and how you've problem solved is the reason why you are even considering taking these. And taking these doesn't change your behavior. It doesn't change the reason why your knees are fucked. It doesn't change the reason why your elbows are fucked. The pattern needs to change, not the amount of steroids you're taking. Because if you're taking these things, the pattern doesn't change. You still eat the same shitty way. You still barely sleep. You still don't build your physical body armor. The next one, performance enhancement. More carbs. Carbohydrates are the single biggest, most powerful performance enhancer in the world. Anybody that doesn't have carbohydrates before their training session is massively reducing their performance. It's that simple. The human body's main fuel source is carbohydrates. Yes, we can be a little bit of a rebel and go, oh, well, I'm eating keto and fats are energy. All right, do that. You're just going to have a substandard energy source, suboptimal energy source, and you're just going to get destroyed of people that are choosing to have carbohydrates before they train. But you need to have carbohydrates after you train as well. And if you're doing a very intense session, for example, wrestling, you probably want to have carbohydrates during your session as well. Now, you can either have bananas like the Dagestanis, or you can add a powder into your electrolytes, a dextrose powder or something like that, mixed with creatine or something as well. Would probably be great, right? Next one, human growth hormone. I think this is massively overrated. It's really expensive. I've never took it myself, but again, it's the same thing, the same pattern. Why do you want to take human growth hormone? Why is your testosterone low? Why are you struggling to build muscle mass? The pattern that makes you choose these things needs to be corrected first before you even consider these. For most people, absolutely terrible, because you shouldn't be trying to stab your needle in your ass. You should be trying to rectify the pattern, which saves you a lot of money. The next one is obvious, and you've probably heard this off every coach. The solution to every problem is more mat time. However, I will give a caveat to that. More mat time is not the reason why, is not the answer to an elbow injury or a knee injury or sore joints from jiu-jitsu. Gassing out, what's the solution? More mat time. I'm not very strong, what's the solution? More mat time. No. Absolutely terrible. For example, marathon runners don't just simply do more marathons in order to improve their performance in marathons. Marathon runners do a lot of miles, a lot of volume, just like you do a lot of jiu-jitsu. However, marathon runners lift fucking weights. They build their armor in their legs. They probably don't do much upper body training. They probably do minor amount of upper body training, but they do lift weights, right? So it's not the solution to everything. However, obviously, more mat time is the best possible thing. And you should aspire to do as much mat time as possible, because by doing that, say if you're currently training 3 or 4 times per week, you should aspire to train 5 or 6 times per week. You should have, and then it becomes a question of, well, how do I increase the amount of mat time that I do? Okay, well, I need to increase my capacity. I need to build my muscle. I need to build my strength so that my body becomes more able to cope with the demands in which I'm placing on it. So everybody should, it doesn't matter how old you are, you should always have the aspiration to do more jiu-jitsu. If you don't, then you're just accepting a life of maintenance rather than progress. The next one, BJJ performance enhancement, is ketogenic diet, which is a high-fat, high-protein diet. It's very common. And a lot of jiu-jitsu guys do keto because they want to lose weight. And again, there's no carbohydrates in keto. And because there's no carbohydrates, there's no energy. Performance is absolutely horrendous. So it's an F tier. There is, without question, yes, your body can utilize fats as energy, but it's just absolutely embarrassing to think that people would ever think that this benefits their performance when it doesn't. Low performers like keto diets. High performers would never do such a thing. Next one, very popular in the jiu-jitsu space, kettlebells. People that have home gyms use kettlebells, and people that have, limited time have kettlebells in the house or whatever. So, how much does kettlebell increase your jiu-jitsu performance? It's better than nothing. However, you've got to ask yourself specifically, what physical capability is this currently developing? And this is the real problem with kettlebells, is the answer isn't clear. I place kettlebells in the form of cardio. However, I would place it in the form of cardio that is not very good, because you can't really push the pace to the high zones you can on a rowing machine or an assault bike. So it's a suboptimal form of cardiovascular training. You can kid yourself and say that, 16 kilo hip thrust, kettlebell swing is going to develop the strength of your hips. No, mate. Develop the strength of your hips. Double bodyweight glute bridges for reps. That's going to develop the strength of your glutes. Kettlebell swings are too light to develop your strength, and they're too light to develop, they're too annoying to actually develop your cardio. They're closer to cardio than they are strength. So, do they develop your performance much? They might if you do a fucking shitload of kettlebells. If you're spending 2 hours a day on a kettlebell session, you might actually get some good benefit. However, most people don't have that much time, and most people want to develop themselves in the shortest possible time frame. So for kettlebells, E, yeah, they just don't develop your performance much. I'm going to say E, right? And there's a lot of people that love kettlebells. And my question to those people is, what specific benefit does that exercise give you? And when I say these things, when I say these harsh things, understand that I'm thinking logically. There's a lot of emotional attachment to all of these things. Next one, losing body fat. Does that benefit your jiu-jitsu performance? Well, if you lose body fat, let's say you are 100 kilos and you were to lose 20 kilos over the course of 6 months in a really steady manner, in a really slow, effective manner, like if you were my program, then you would become essentially, you'd have a better strength to body weight ratio. So you would be stronger. Your body, you would be able to move your body easier. You would be able to move your body faster. Your joints would feel less stressed out by the demands in which you're placing it, because you're lighter. So losing body fat, being lighter, means that you actually feel stronger and you're more quick, you're more agile. So people don't realize this, but losing body fat is a great way to increase your performance, because having random body fat, like looking at your stomach and it's just fat as fuck, is not going to benefit your performance. Even though you think, yeah, but I'm heavier, I've got more pressure. Fuck off. Get more top pressure by developing technical top pressure, not by being randomly fat and justifying it. But losing body fat is fucking quality. Everybody should have. I genuinely believe that everybody should get shredded once per year. Just get all the fat off, and then you reset. I call it resetting the canvas. I think it's a really good thing to do once per year, because people just get into real bad states when they're just fat and horrible. Here's an interesting one. More nutrient-dense foods. Does more nutrient-dense foods increase your performance? Nutrient-dense foods do not improve your performance, right? They'll improve your health. Unfortunately, performance enhancement and high performance sometimes starts to stray away from health, right? So I'm going to put this here. Nutrient density surrounding your day, but absolutely surrounding your training sessions, more carbohydrates. Hopefully that makes sense. Next one, more water. So water is required to transport nutrients and carbs around the body. We're 80% water, mate. Carbohydrates, yeah, water does all that stuff, right? So obviously more water. The more water you have, you're going to feel like you have more energy, right? So I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Obviously, more water is going to be pretty effective, right? However, don't worry about it. If you're not thirsty, don't drink water. Don't listen to people that say, oh, you need to drink that. Fuck off here. Next one, yoga. Where does yoga go? So what does yoga do? Everyone thinks stretching is great for recovery, and what's it actually doing? It's lengthening the muscles, and you're sitting in a position with long muscles. So the only argument you can have for yoga is that it's strengthening the end ranges isometrically. Now, if you don't know what that means, Google it. I can't be asked explaining it on this video. But again, yoga is going to benefit your performance because it's going to get you into more end ranges, right? However, which opens up more doors from a jiu-jitsu standpoint. However, typically yoga classes, it's like, right, we're going to do this on a Monday, we're going to do this on a Tuesday. If you had actual structured mobility training where it focused on hips only for guard, and it progressed properly and treat you as an individual, then that would be way better. Because yoga, it's going to go, all right, we're going to do shoulders today, we're going to do calves the next day, we're going to do hamstrings. That's not good enough. You don't need general anything, right? You need laser focused, precise mobility training. Now, of course, being more mobile is going to open up more doors. Body triangles flipped up with ease. But simply doing yoga is not going to move the needle, right? However, it's going to provide some value if you take it seriously. However, I would say go one further than that and make it specific. Like, if you want to get more mobile in your hips, then have a really structured routine that develops the mobility of your hips 3 times per week. One of the things with bodybuilding, if done properly, you're actually training your mobility at the same time. So you're not just getting the lengthening benefits of these positions, you're actually lifting weights at the same time. That's why you can make an argument that bodybuilding is better than yoga, because it does what yoga does, but also gets you stronger as well. However, for spiritual benefits and stuff like that, then yoga is all right, I suppose. Powerlifting. So there's no doubt that being powerful, is going to transfer over to the mats massively. However, one of the real negatives, one of the real cons with powerlifting is that doing powerlifting is really taxing on your nervous system. And with bodybuilding, you can kind of manage the amount of fatigue a little bit better. However, with powerlifting, you can't do that because you're doing the big lifts, you're doing deadlifts regularly, you're doing squats regularly, you're doing bench regularly. So if your nervous system's taxed and zapped from these movements, from this training, then that's going to affect your ability to think and problem solve on the mats. It's going to affect your mood. Do you know what I mean? So it's not going to be very good. And I would advocate doing some powerlifting. Develop your power, great, absolutely develop your power, but try and do it in a way that limits the amount of fatigue in which your body has. So powerlifting, where are we putting it? We're going to put it above average. Above average, however, you have to be very careful about how you're managing fatigue. Right, last 4, right? popular as fuck, and I always say, just another shiny object. Maces. Oh, we used to use maces when we were fighting in wars. Fuck off, you absolute. What do? Give me a specific thing that they do extremely well. The answer is nothing, right? So take your maces and shove them up your fucking ass. These are worse than kettlebells, right? However, they are fun. They are enjoyable. Developing your performance is not fun. Remember that. If the thing that you're doing is fun, it probably absolutely destroys your performance. However, some of the things, i.e. jiu-jitsu, we need to do, yes, it destroys our physical capabilities because it destroys our joints. That's all right. We have to do it to develop our skills. CrossFit. Does CrossFit develop your performance for jiu-jitsu? CrossFit is a general purpose. We'll do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that. We'll change the workouts. We'll develop our strength on that day. We'll do our power on that day. We'll do a crazy workout. It's very easy for somebody to choose CrossFit, right? Because jiu-jitsu is so complex. People like to match jiu-jitsu's complexity with complexity off the mat as well. And I'm a person that believes balance is key. So by doing shenanigans on the mats, then shenanigans off the mat, your body's just gonna be like, what the fuck are you doing, mate? Chill out, you fucking lunatic. So, because CrossFit ticks a lot of the same boxes on a physical standpoint as jiu-jitsu, then people think, well, I need to do that. And the answer is no. You need to have a lot more precision with your training off the mats to allow the craziness on the mats. You don't just get to do two things that are crazy without your body having a meltdown. So, CrossFit for performance enhancement jiu-jitsu, it might feel like it's similar, but that is exactly why you shouldn't be doing both of these things. If you have an off season of jiu-jitsu, which nobody does have, but let's say you had a period of 3 to 4 months away from jiu-jitsu, you could absolutely swap your jiu-jitsu training, what you used to do for jiu-jitsu, with CrossFit. That'd be fine. However, more precision and more simplicity is required to build the foundation of your house. So always think like that. CrossFit is going down into, yeah, it's not going to develop your performance. It really isn't, right? Next thing, pretty obvious. If you don't sleep much, you're going to feel like shit, you're going to feel hungover. From a physical standpoint and a psychological standpoint as well, right? So by having more sleep, you are going to operate more effectively as an athlete, as a man, in all areas of life. Stress management, concentration, memory. You're going to grow more from your training sessions. Last, but certainly not least, steroids. It's almost like the fitness industry has heavily influenced the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu industry, and all the scum that has came from the marketing of the fitness space. Like, people that take steroids are people that are desperate for a result, and they want the result without having to change their behavior or change their life. You know, the people that just want the thing without the work, right? And that's just human psychology. People are just choosing comfort. They're just choosing to not do what is required. And, you know, the negatives for steroids are evident. And if you're taking steroids, then you're going to have to counteract the symptoms with more chemicals. Steroids, F tier, shite. They are that negatively affecting your health in favour of trying to benefit your performance. Most people that take steroids are not doing anything in S tier, not doing anything in A tier, and not doing anything in B tier. They are just looking for the path of least resistance. And when does that ever serve you?